overall form. And if you understand the meaning of this structure, it makes it a completely different piece. So this is, and we also made practicing score that can be put on the music stand. I mean, just cut this by, I don't know, 10 pages. And you can immediately see that what makes a pair of variations go together. Gentleman had a very, very good point when he came and he said he's not musician, but he said, I can't read the pitch of the notes, but I can see only the rhythm. And I said, that's correct. That's exactly what we are talking about, because the density of the visual experience, I mean, the more black it gets, the faster the music goes. And that makes actually the waving of this piece. So that's the fundament. That makes it alive and keep continuing, because of course a 15 minutes long piece cannot be always the same. So he had to make sure, if he writes such a long piece, that it's very exciting, and it fulfills a whole idea. So I would say very shortly about the statistics of the variations. So most of the time the rhythm is responsible for keeping the variations together, and it gives a strong cohesion. And number 19, variation 19, is the first variation that stands alone and makes a big turn in throughout the I don't know, the dramaturgy of the piece. So the building up of the whole story, if I can say that. And then here you can see that the middle part, the arpeggio section, we worked out, because Bach didn't give the exact details of division. And between the three variations units, there is a standalone variation. And then another solo one in 38 as well, and the last one is 55. So when we didn't have this when analyzing the piece, but we had lots of notes and writings, and we kind of made the statistics and tried to see some kind of balance or kind of division, why it's written like this. And actually symmetry was the key word, because this is demonstratively kind of symmetry here. And going away from this 27th variation, we discovered that it's a whole half circle that is in perfect symmetry. So if I can. So I don't know, you can see this clearly or vaguely? No, not really.
I have a photocopy and I look from here.
Okay, so I think
maybe everybody can write it. Then we can follow it.
So this is how we've divided our score. So first 6 variations. And then here comes another 6. So 2 plus 4. 4 plus 2. Here we have 7. And then comes the arpeggio section. And then here we have also 6, 6, 7, going from the other side. So basically, from 42, it's 6, 6, 7, and in the middle there are 14 variations of arpeggio. 6, 6, 7, and 14 in the middle, and the very middle of this arpeggio section is 27. So we figured out that 52 is the variations, they belong together very strongly. And this number and the remaining 12 gave us an idea that it has to do with the time, measuring the time, because there are 52 weeks in a year, and the left over, the 12, can be looked at as months of the year. And basically, what is the meaning of 27? It's the week of the year when Bach's first wife, Maria Barbara Bach, had died in 1720. So this was a tragic event in Bach's life, which devastated him emotionally. They had a very beautiful marriage, 4 children, and they were both very young. I mean, Bach was 35, Maria Barbara was 36. And also the circumstances were quite terrible for Bach, because he was not present when his wife died. So he was on a journey with his employer for approximately 2 months. It's not known. But what we know from the memories of his son, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, who was 6 years at this year, 6 years old, and he became a very famous harpsichord player and musician of in Berlin. Great Friedrich, not Friedrich.
Frederick
the Great. So he wrote that when his father entered his home, coming back from the journey, he faced the news that his wife had died and has been buried. So Bach had no chance to say goodbye to his wife, and it was a most dramatic event of his life. He lost his parents at an early age. When he was 10, he lost both his parents, and many of his children died, but his wife was the most, must have been the most precious person in his life. If we think about all the pieces he'd written in Köthen, or the 6 Brandenburg concertos, the violin concertos, harpsichord concertos, the cello suites, this cycle, the harpsichord sonatas, so all the secular and most happy and most innovative, experimenting and instrumental music. What basically today is the most popular. And after losing Maria Barbara, he decided to leave Köthen, and he looked for another job, another place. He remarried 18 months after losing Maria Barbara Bach, and his second marriage was also very happy and harmonious. But knowing this fact and understanding his motivation explains why the Chaconne was written for violin and not for organ and not for orchestra, because his pain, his inner pain, I mean, it's very intimate to lose his wife. It's a very intense, very intimate pain, and in that period of history and his environment, being a Puritan, Lutheran person, maybe it was not appropriate to express his sorrow, but a single violin can carry this message, and also the length of the movement is understandable if we know about his loss. So this is the map of the Chaconne. I should have said this way. So this is the 52 variations, and we have this 6, 6, 7, and in the middle, this is the arpeggio section. Here are the most important moments, which in fact is hidden in the middle of this foggy and blurry type of musical material, this arpeggio, that what makes 27 stick out of this area is basically the number of voices change. So instead of 3 voices, but there are before, I will show. He goes to 4 from 3. So so it's like a heartbeat going faster, which is very really fascinating and so subtle and fine musical idea to illustrate such a painful moment. And here, if we treat the remaining 12, it would say that January, February, March, April, May, June, July. July is the event of the funeral, because the day of the funeral is notated, so we know that she was buried the 7th of July, 1720. And the solus is March, when Johann Sebastian was born. So that's his month, and that represents his loneliness and his loss. I would like to say a few words about. Before I talk about the thema and the variants. So this is the book that we published in 2017. And during COVID, we had time to work on the fugues, and we made a shorter, so not the full analysis, but the colored notes with some text and explanation. And G minor and C major, I brought some copies, and the A minor is still in preparation. But this year we will release the A minor fugue as well. So I still have a little time to talk, so I would like to tell you and play for you what is the fundament of the whole piece is the thema. It's the question of the thema, and it's a very tricky question, and many people were trying to find the right answer, and it's really not easy. because the tema is basically the Chaconne tema, or the Passacaglia, or La Foglia, with basso ostinato. Everybody knows this. It was very common in Bach's time, and he wrote a C minor Passacaglia Fuga for organ, which is very popular. And there is Corelli, La Foglia, and Vivaldi, and Biber, Chaconne, but they all start with a tema, and then variations follow. But here he starts with a variation, and the base tema is also a variant, which makes it tricky because it appears in many different shapes. So our analysis started with the bass. So we spent months of writing out the bass notes, and we figured that there are 4 types of variants, that he's using one or several of them. And I would like to tell you about these 4. If I play separately, probably you will recognize it during the playing. So he starts with augmented second. So we gave names, we gave terminologies. So augmented second variant is so that's in the beginning of the piece. And then the next one is a chromatic. And then the 3rd, 6th interval step. And its inversion. And the number 4 is so we have the most of these 3rd steps. This symbolizes the relation in interval symbolic. So number 4 is the substitute note, which is should be. So he replaces 2 notes by a 3rd. So and this scale is the harmonic fundament of the piece. So this from tonica going to dominant and again. So it's like circling 64 times throughout the piece. And it's quite amazing to realize that the original shape of the tema, DCBA, is not present in its clear version, original shape, but it's there in the background. So it's so the variants derive from the original tema. So we can say that its children are carrying the genetic of the tema. And this was also illuminating to realize that Bach and Maria Barbara had 4 children when she died. And this is a symbolic memory of Maria Barbara Bach, that he's using 4 small or varied of the mother tema, which is not present in the piece. And this is also in the structure of the partitan, because there are allemande, courante, sarabande, small dance movements, and then the mother, the big one, so 4 plus 1, 4 little, 1 big, is the chaconne. So that's so important to know about this piece, because it helps, it guides you in this forest of notes. A little interesting information, I would say, that this 27th variation in the middle appears 2 times, not only once. So Bach is using it on the 54th, variation 54, which is the double of 27, and it's literally it's a double because it's the same set of notes. And why he does this, that he repeats, because this way he places Maria Barbara's memory besides himself in the 55. You can see the direction of notes from variation 13. I don't know if you can really see it, but the 2 variations, they always lean towards each other, which means that they complement each other. So it's friendship. So they always embrace each other. So one goes this way and the other the other way, and that's the system throughout the whole piece, except for the very end, 61 and 62. One goes high and the other one goes low. And that's basically the end of the story, because they are separated, and just one little, very small rest comes after this. And then the last 2 variations. So the pairs and their relation and connection is clearly a symbolic musical idea of a marriage and 2 persons' relations. About the proportions, I need to tell that the golden section, what is so important in this piece, first of all, because the minor, major, minor parts, 3 parts, have a golden section, but diminishing. So 33, 19, and 12. So it already shows to the death and the end of life. So not the birth and pouring out, but going back to the source, to the root of human life. The whole 64 variations, the positive golden section moment is a 41 variation, where of course it's the composer himself, it's his number, and this is the happiest and loudest and most festive atmosphere of the whole piece. So this is the demonstration of happiness he lived together with Maria Barbara Bach. And the other way of looking golden proportion is the negative. So when the smaller part comes first, and that's when person looks inside himself and spiritually turning away from the world. And that's right in Arpeggio section, and it's really easy to identify that Bach used all these tools consciously, and he knew how to make program music, and it's like hidden inside the music, so it's not carrying any instructions or any relations or any way of telling story or telling his personal relation or touch to the piece, but if you look closer and you understand his tool set of compositional techniques, it's possible to understand what these symbols are, what content and what meanings they have, because our life is full of symbols, and symbols always have something behind. So it's not just for the symbol of simple, l'art pour l'art. So I would like to propose that we take a very short break, like 3 minutes, and then I play the Chaconne, and then we still have time to have some questions and talk if you have any questions.
Ez szombat vasárnap lesz, tehát ha jól emlékszem, szombatról lesz benne ilyen apróságban. Tehát egymás mellett játszódozunk, beszélgetünk, és egy kerekasztal mindenféle, és akkor a vasárnap pedig fél 12-kor van jól van, és akkor van nekem az az érzésem, hogy reggel nem szabad, hogyha közben nézzük a kottát.
Ja, nem.
Jó, én nem nézem. Nem, mert van, aki szabad.
Jó, engem nem. Akkor lehet ezt is nézni. Hogyha... Engem nem szabad. Welcome to ask any questions, if you have.
Yes, I would have a question. Is there any fact that Bach itself played it publicly, this or other violin partitas or sonatas in Chaconne or somewhere else?
No, we don't. I mean, music historians have very little evidence of Bach's life, and he didn't leave many notes. Basically, his music. he had some letters, some recommendations, he was not so busy with communicating and building his career, but writing his music and playing.
Mm-hmm. But did he play in public in Chaconne?
He was leading in the orchestra there. He was the Kapellmeister. He was a conductor, and there must have been very good orchestra and very good players who inspired him to write so many pieces for violin. So the level was very high in Chaconne, musically. Yes?
No, first of all, thank you very much. I was very interested in your lecture and the beautiful playing. Thank you very much. I thought, I want to ask you because I also feel very touched by this idea that Chaconne must have something to do with the death of his wife. And for example, just to see how different this piece is from any other,
Yes.
other movements of what he wrote. Why? There must be something behind that. But sometimes when I read this up, I hear some musicologists or even, I don't know, some people say, oh no, this is just a tale and it has nothing to do with the reality. I feel like, for example, the minor is the sadness.
Yes, that's the most shocking moment when we return back to D minor.
And then I feel like when the major comes, it's like sun in heaven. No.
Yes, especially variation 41, where he uses trumpets and timpani, and it's like orchestra sound image. So he has a lot of tools to express what he wants. Only he didn't write, and also his environment. He was not that type. Vivaldi wrote so many program music, we call his concertos and a lot of the Four Seasons, but many other things. And they liked using the violin as imitating some animals, and also Bieber has a sonata. But Bach kept it all for himself. He didn't want to be popular and commercial in that way.
So I feel like in the end, when it comes back to the D minor, it's like he's like sitting alone there, like, oh, I'm alone here. I'm not in heaven, but
yes, that's reality.
Life must go on. But my question to you is that how do you have some proof of history? I would like to know, because I would like to defend this idea. I only feel this.
Well, this is why we wrote the book.
That it was related to the death. I'm very curious if you can tell more.
Yes. So this is why we wrote the book, to prove that all this the way we found the organization of variations. It must be Bach's original idea. What makes it so difficult to analyze that the score, how he wrote it in an autograph, and the black and white music doesn't give any clue, and it doesn't help to understand the piece. So you have to take it apart like a Lego and identify. And we spent 4 years analyzing it, because for me it was very important to get a little bit closer to the piece. We had no idea such things we would discover, and the statistics we had already for 1 year, and we were busy with other things and explaining, and the numbers. Some questions were open, but we had no rush to squeeze some personal idea or preconception that probably there's something about Maria Barbara. But when we realized that the 52 and 12 are the key numbers, then it was obvious that it's the completeness of the year, and his emotions and his love and his faith fullness to his love, Maria Barbara, and he wanted to express it by writing a tombeau in memory of Maria Barbara.
Where is the point where you can have the year where you said it?
Well, it's the whole year divided by weeks and by months. So this is also a kind of scale that he's growing the scale of time. So weeks, months, and then at the end there's eternity.
But wasn't there something, this kind of a key that you said in your lecture, that it is a point?
Yes, it's the middle point where the center of the piece is. This very, very quiet and piano part in the middle of the arpeggio section. This is the week where Maria Barbara's funeral was, the 27th week
that was
of the year.
The 4 weeks.
Yes, yes. And this
27.
I mean, a year has 52 weeks, and you can divide it in the middle, 26 and 26, add up to 52. And because Bach was so brilliantly a virtuoso composer, juggling with numbers and his ideas, putting it into a whole creation and the whole construction where everything matches everything, and it's quite incredible to follow.
Just one comment on it. Wasn't it quite usual in the German violin school? Because if I remember what Bieber has done and his colleagues earlier, Schmerzer and Wirsmeyer and the other guys, it was very symbolic actually when they wrote whatever piece. So lots of symbol. It's packed with symbols.
Yes, yes. Also the Rosenkranz sonatas and it was a kind of competing among composers, but already earlier that they were hiding a lot of additional information and they didn't talk about it. So who had the eye and knowledge to investigate and find the hidden meanings and information, those could get more out of the piece.
Because just as a comment, because it was very well known, especially among musicians. So they had the German had already a 150-year of tradition of solo violin pieces, which, for instance, Silka worked on it very, I can say, very intensely and extremely enlightening. In 2010, we made in the Helsinki Festival home concerts, and Silka was working on her Bach recording of these pieces, and we made a concert about the German violin school, and it was a mind-blowing thing. Because she started with Stefan Hauer in anonymous pieces from different manuscripts from the 16th century, and she ended up at Telemann and Bach. So it was very interesting. It's very organic and very mind-blowing.
Because it's German, it's engineering mind. Yes.
Quite. So it was quite often and quite well known. It was in the air.
If you think about the only one portrait of Bach, is very famous one, is Hausmann, that is proved to be original. Also, there he holds in his hand a little hidden quiz, hogy rejtvény? Puzzle. Yes, like crosswords. So you have to figure out, because it's also inverted, and if you count the number of buttons on his jacket, it's also 14. So for him, it was important, and he was invited to this society by Miesler, of most sophisticated professors of Leipzig at the time. And there were very few people, like 11, 12, and he got invitation, and he said, no, it's not yet my time, because he wanted to enter the society as a 14th member. So it was part of his life and his work And also in the Passions, there are a lot of symbolic use of symbolic numbers, like when Jesus in the recitativo, I think in Johannes Passion, when Jesus sings that I will stay with you for every day of the year, and the number of notes in that recitativo is 365. So for him, it was important to make it more clear and strong, and it kind of gave cohesion with his identity and the music he creates. So it was not about his ego or putting himself in front. You know, he was putting himself inside the piece, like workers of builders of cathedrals. They also hid their signature in the stone where nobody can see. I don't know if you heard about this. And this is also something very modest and humble, but still for them it was a way of leaving their personal sign for the people later, or just for themselves. They didn't think about eternity or later generations, but for them just that he was there and he did that piece of art.
Do we know about his methods of working? That did he use any kind of sketch about this structure?
No.
Or it was everything in his head?
I mean, the manuscript that is preserved in Berlin is in very good state, but it's the final copy, Liszt-instituutti kézirat. So it's the clear and one of his most beautiful handwriting scores. From the B minor Mass and the Matthäus Passion that he was working on for many years, we have in Berlin, they have some copies that he even put some sellotapes to restore because the paper was getting weary, and he used some colors to correct some earlier versions, but from the Wiley pieces, no.
But do you think he was using some sketches?
I have no idea. Nobody knows.
But he spent the last years of his life, actually more than one decade, on writing everything down. I mean that clinic. Practically speaking, he finished after the big Passions. He finished to compose new music, basically. Until he was completely blind, because he had the same disease as Handel, and they had the same doctor they used, actually, and he got infected, of course, after that. But he really was conscious about his output in some way to preserve and for publication or something like that, because it was very important for him.
Yes,
he showed.
I mean, he worked Who's der Fuga?
Yeah, of course, but after that it's not really getting. Then there were complete years when nothing came.
Well, his life changed drastically after leaving Köthen, and he never wrote solo pieces for instruments, mainly organ pieces and cantatas and passions, so church music. And he had a lot of difficulties in Leipzig with his employer, and he never had enough musicians in the orchestra, and he was fighting with hours and money, and he had to teach in the school, so it was a difficult life he had. He only traveled to Berlin 47, I think, 3 years before his death, and he was treated with great respect, and he made an enormous impression on the diplomatic people around Frederick, and there are some notes remained that all the diplomacy people reported back to their employers that they heard the great master Johann Sebastian Bach, and he improvised fugues on harpsichord and some new instrument, fortepiano or something
Yeah,
like
he
that.
went into the piano business because he worked with Silverman closely on piano building. Tuija Hakkila has incredible material on that, and he sold actually
Yes.
instruments, and he used the first instruments with Silverman, made by Silverman, and also repeated it and gave it back and traded it also to his colleagues.
So the diplomatic people wrote that Johann Sebastian Bach performed his music on a very high, sophisticated and scientific way. Musically. So it's a bit funny, but it's a very right way to describe his music and his art, because he was a mathematician in a way that he was able to imply mathematics and theology as well, and all this together makes something so special and so simple in a way and beautiful, even if you don't know anything about the inside information of the piece or the structure or the meaning. It goes into the ear and it goes into the heart. But I think because it's so highly spiritual and it adds so much to the beauty and understanding of the piece, it would be a mistake not to study Bach's music and look inside.
And when you started to work on the analysis of this piece, have you got any help from the vast literature on Bach and the numeric things? There's a vast literature on it.
Well, not in the Chaconne. We've had very interesting analysis by Helga Töne, who looks this piece only by these numerical relations. And for example, in the Arpeggio section, there are several death chorales going on simultaneously. So it's really something very dark and grieving. And she discovered a bit abstract for us, because what she tells some religious texts and Bible quotations and stuff in the Chaconne, it's too far from the piece. So I can feel it, but I cannot understand, and I cannot use it as a violinist. So I need direct information about, for example, the variations, how they are related to each other, and throughout the whole piece, how it develops from one state to the next one.
What about analogies on for instance, analytics on the Goldberg variations? Because this is another cornerstone.
I didn't look closer to the Goldberg. We analyzed the three fugues. And there were a lot of analogies, because they are also from this period.
Yeah.
So in the fugues, but I must say that all the three fugues, all three have different structure and different mindset. So it's like a game that has its own rules, and until we find the rules, what he created for himself, within he was able to build up a whole concept. I mean, I'm talking about formal rules and stuff. It's not possible to start moving around. So what we did, we compared variations to each other and made statistics on three main aspects. One is identity, similarity, and opposites. So differences. So we wrote percentage and really counting and measuring what is a strong enough bond between them. For example, 22 and 23 is a very exciting moment because it's the transition between the melodic part and the accordic music. So we are going to horizontal to vertical, but the rhythm holds it together. And this pair of variations it counts as two standalone variations as well. And I just go back quickly to show why.
I think it was switched on.
Maybe.
Nem baj.
Addig
Addig, hogy ez az 55-ös variáció, ami a március, ott azt nem hívtam fel. Oh, sorry, I see. So the variation 55, which is the standalone, and it's the March variation, and it symbolizes himself, his lonely state, and it's almost like crying in the middle. This so it's very obvious.
These are coming actually in the cantatas quite
Yes.
many.
And the last bit here, he squeezes the basso ostinato, which was normally in 4 bars, he squeezes it into 1 bar. So it becomes very concentrated, a little bit like the last moment before death, that the whole life is put into 1 second. So kind of psychological experience. And this dominant pedal and the interval of unison, that is clearly a symbol of death. Because also the heart, when your heart is being examined by the doctor, I mean, it has to make movement, and when it's flat, it means it's not beating. So music is the same.
Or you can say what the new brain studies about the brain, they are telling them that just one moment before death, there is a huge amount of brain activities. Basically, what they are saying that you see the whole life is going on in 1 second or a few seconds. So this might be also that when everything is coming together into one.
It's a very interesting question. A lot of people are trying to figure out and research and explain how music works for the listener, and I don't think it's possible. But I don't even want to know how scientifically it can be proved or explained. But for sure, Bach knew what makes an effect on a listener and how to communicate through his music. Because music is a language, And as deep we can dig into this endless territory of finding out and discovering his tools, I think the richer we get and understand and become a better player as well, a better teacher.
Exactly. It's about this.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
Thank you.